You want to learn how to improve your Minecraft world through adding story. Well, you've just clicked on the perfect video, because that's exactly what I'm teaching you today. Well, first of all, I want to tell you that there are many ways you can add story to your Minecraft world. However, I'm going to focus on a few very specific strategies. So what I'm not going to be talking about, but is perfectly viable if that's what you want to do, writing a story in a book and quill or putting them on signs and saying what's going on. Whilst this I do believe is completely valid, it is also very much showing instead of telling, and that's not really what I want to focus on teaching you today. What do I mean by adding story? Well, as a good starting point, I'd say connecting your builds together. And that can be physically connecting your builds through roads, which is something which I've got a video on my channel talking about already. But I think more importantly, it's connecting your builds in terms of their narrative. You see, this is my starter base we're in right now. And I built this base as a mining town, centered around one central quarry where the company extracts resources from the ground and sells them in bulk orders. But this isn't where all the business takes place. Instead, for that, we need to head right over to the city I've been building. And currently, this is the merchant district. And this building in particular is the offices of the mining company. And to create this connection, I used a very similar build style to the mining company. Took a lot of the motifs from that town and added them straight into this build so that they feel very much connected. To make it very obvious to anyone looking at this building that it is owned by the mining company. And this is just one way of creating a bit of a story in your world. Another way of adding story to your world is creating one uniform atmosphere that applies to almost all your builds. This could be some kind of theme or tone. So for example, in my world here, I follow a medieval fantasy theme throughout all my builds, and it's the kind of guiding principle in what I decide to build. But I also have the idea that this world is actually rather peaceful, and that there would have been conflict in its history, but most of those things have been sorted out, and I tell that story in quite a few locations. The city walls here are made with lots of moss, and the edges are crumbling down, creating a sense that these walls are not the most heavily maintained. And why are they not maintained? Because there isn't much purpose to keeping them maintained, as there isn't currently ongoing conflict. This concept is also demonstrated by this tower, where you can see that the walls are in a state of disrepair, and whilst there have been attempts to keep this wall maintained, it's not particularly structurally sound. As you can see, they've just thrown some wooden panels in and stuff to support this crumbling stone wall. Similarly to the wall, I also have this watchtower, which would have been originally defending the path below, but due to the fact we're in peace times, has fallen into disrepair. Now here's a bit more of an obscure thing, but I think it's a very good idea when building worlds to think about the population and where their food and resources comes from. So I think a great way to fill out space in your world whilst also telling a sort of story is by adding farmland. This is something I do a lot. As you can see, my world is full of farmland, and it's something that just creates this sense that people are working fields and providing food to sustain this entire world. The fields tell the story of how people live in this world, but what else do people do? They work jobs. And this is where I think having dedicated builds for different careers is very important. So around my world, I have several different buildings dedicated to different jobs. I've got a blacksmith's over here, working to support the mining town, providing new pickaxes for the miners. I have a village dedicated to farming over here, a lumber mill down here, a blacksmith to provide weapons for the city guard, as the city guard has its barracks right across the street, as well as butchers' shops and bakeries. All of this provides the sense that there are many different people in this world working different jobs, but all having their own individual lives. And this is something that helps really tell a story in your world. But it's all well and good saying this is what you should do, but how do I put it into practice? Well, for a first tip, I'd recommend thinking about who would live or work in a building whilst you design it. By doing this, you come up with an idea of things like their personality, maybe what they do for work, things like that. Maybe how many people would live in the building. And as you do that, those thoughts inform your decisions on how the building and the space is designed and what the vibe would be. For example, when building this building, I thought of it as an inn belonging to an innkeeper who lives in the little extension off the side, who works in the kitchen back here. I thought it'd be quite a welcoming place, and the innkeeper would take a similar role to Butterbur in Lord of the Rings, make it a welcoming and friendly inn where people all over the world can come and visit. Another thing to bear in mind is telling stories takes practice. This can be learning which details are worth adding and how to add them. Come up with certain details that you add in multiple of your builds and you really kind of find almost like a default detail you like to add everywhere. For example, I'm a big fan of adding things like carts. because it feels like there's a bit of motion going on and resources are being moved around the world. But it also comes to understanding that not every single building needs a story fleshing out. Some of them can just exist as buildings themselves, or buildings with a loose purpose. Now, if you enjoyed the video and want to see more of this survival world, there is a playlist on the end screen now which shows you all the videos in this series, as I've been building this world up for a good few months and it's been a real fun project to work on.